Today we're going to be comparing the New Balance FUELCELL Propel against the New Balance Beacon version 2. What is up guys, Andy Forestine Runner here and welcome back to another video today, and today is going to be a good one. Today we're comparing the New Balance FUELCELL Propel to the New Balance Beacon version number 2. It was really important that I got enough miles in the Beacon before I made this video, and now we have 86 miles in the Propel and 49 in the Beacon. I think it's about time that we compared these two shoes. So if you are excited for today's video guys, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so as always with these comparison reviews, what we will do is we will start with the construction, the similarities and the differences, working from heel all the way down to the midsole and outsole, and then after that we'll talk more about preference and which I prefer in terms of maybe for workouts, long runs and overall consensus. So if we start with the construction side of things with these shoes, both of these shoes have a 6mm heel to toe drop. The New Balance Beacon, I'll put the weights of my specific shoes because these are both, well actually, sorry, this is a UK size 13.5 and this is a UK size 14.5. I'm normally a 13. New Balance do half sizes from 12 onwards, so it's 12.5, 13.5, 14.5. And with the New Balance Propel, you do need to size up, so I did have to go with a 14.5. As I said, I'll put the weights of mine on screen, but in general, the Beacon is a lighter shoe, and we'll come to why it's a lighter shoe shortly. If we work our way from heels down, you'll see that New Balance has really embraced the heel flare in their designs of their shoes this year. As I've said in previous videos, I have no objection to it. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. It doesn't rub. It doesn't do anything different. The difference between these two heel flares is the material around the ankle area on these shoes is very different. This Beacon is a much more thin material, and actually if you've seen Nike Vaporfly Next Percent videos of shoe reviews, you'll notice that in the shoes they have this kind of padded thin layer around in here, like a bumper section in here, and the rest of the material is thin. That's kind of very similar to what this has. It's very thin material here, and then just further on down in there it has kind of a bumper lining that goes all the way around, whereas the Propel is a lot more plush, a lot more thicker, adding to the weight, but a lot more cushioned around this area, which is nice. Moving on down, we've got the tongue and the lacing systems. The tongues feel very similar on these two shoes, both about the same thickness. There's no real difference in those two other than the fact that the Beacon has its logo plastered all over the tongue, whereas the Propel does not. And then the lacing system, I think for me, the one thing that has stood out from the New Balance shoes that I've tested this year is the lacing systems. As a lot of you guys know, when you get new shoes, sometimes you can have shoes that really mess up due to the fact that you can't get them tight, locked down, the fitting's wrong. For me, a great example, the original Nike Zoom Fly, that Flywire stuff was diabolical in my opinion. I know a lot of you disagree with me, but I could never get a tight lockdown. The laces ended up coming undone on some occasions and it was very frustrating. That is something I have not had. Now both of these lacing systems are different. If I'm completely honest with you, I prefer the Beacon's lacing system. It has what I would, it's very difficult to explain, but it's a very simplistic normal lacing system, and this area where that holds and the eyelets are in the shoe, holds the laces in, almost looks laminated. It has like a film over it, a thicker film, which is nice. It gives it a more sturdy and secure feel, whereas the Propel actually has something similar, I don't know if you can see, similar to the Flywire, but it's just better constructed material than the Flywire. But again, no issues with either of those two in terms of getting a lockdown. If we move down the shoe and we look at the material on the outside of the shoe, this is where there is a big difference. You'll notice that Propel has this breathable mesh upper from the back to the front. This mesh is actually quite thick compared to the Beacon. And the difference here is that we have this suede tip going around the end, which I'm assuming is for durability purposes, for when you're out on the trails, not getting your toes wet maybe, going through puddles, all that stuff. It's just a one section piece of breathable upper, whereas the Beacon is kind of split into two, or it looks like that from here. You can see this lighter blue section that goes all the way around the back of the Beacon. This is a very fabricated, spongy feeling material with that hexagonal pattern, which is also on the base of the shoe, the outsole. You'll notice that pattern a lot on the Beacons. And then we move into this, what they call, don't quote me, it is a circular knit upper section here, so I'm guessing similar to breathable mesh. I don't know what all these terminologies mean, but this material has special wicking properties, which means it aims to keep sweat away, keeps your foot dry. And I've got to say, between the two uppers, I do actually prefer the Beacon uppers. It's a thinner, lighter material. When you compare these two shoes actually next to each other, you do realise actually how much thicker some of this material is on the Propel. Not taking anything away from that shoe, but the Beacon gets the win in terms of the upper here. So that is the shoe on the top half. So if we move on to the midsoles of these two shoes, this is again where there's another big difference. Of course, the Propel uses the So if we move on to the midsoles of these shoes, this is where there is another big difference. The Propel uses the FUELCELL midsole material, whereas the Beacon uses the fresh foam material. They are both incredibly different. You're going to get a much softer, plusher, comfortable ride in the Propel compared to the Beacon. Now, it's been really interesting putting the Beacon videos out there, doing the speed test, the long run test, my initial review, because a lot of you guys absolutely love the Beacon version 2 and the version 1 for your easy days, your recovery runs, all of that stuff. And I've got to be honest with you, for me, I'm completely the other way around. This thing really kind of, the stiffness of the midsole, and it's not loosening up yet after 50 miles, or not softening up, I should say, really kind of lends itself to more speed work type of runs. Whereas this thing is just an absolute gem when it comes to going out and doing long runs, recovery runs, easy runs, and all the stuff where you just want a little bit more cushion in your feet. So that is the main difference between the two there. And then of course, to add to the weight difference between the two, and this was very similar with the Hoka Rincon to the Propel comparison video I did, you will notice on the outsole the main difference is here. Again, the Propel has a lot of rubber on the outsole for durability purposes, of course, whereas the Beacon 2 has these foot pods that don't have much rubber outsole on again, and only a select few pods have rubber outsole on in the high wear areas. So again, saving some weight there. So overall, in terms of the design similarities, differences, that is it for the Propel and the Beacon. Okay, so finally let's jump into preferences, which shoe I prefer for which type of run. Overall, my thoughts on both the shoes, and of course maybe recommendations to you guys if you're thinking about looking into getting one of these two shoes. In terms of preferences, for me at the moment, if you said to me, I need to go out on a long run, easy run, recovery run, as I've just alluded to, I'm 100% always going to pick the Propel, and quite frankly, out of my whole shoe lineup at the moment, this is my go-to shoe. I've already used it this week quite a bit. I was really delighted to be able to get my feet back into this thing after a week of testing in the Beacon. It just feels so good, so nice, and especially actually out on the trails as well. The soft cushioned ride that this thing gives is just absolutely phenomenal, coupled with the fact that when you go out on nice, soft, buffed out fire road type of trails, it's just a ride that is uncomparable to a lot of shoes, if I'm completely honest with you. In terms of speed though, yes, this shoe can go fast. Yes, I did a speed test in it. Yes, I did enjoy it. However, I feel there are better shoes for that in my current lineup. The main go-to shoe that I'm using for my speed workouts at the moment is the Hoka Rincon and sometimes the Nike Zoom Fly 3s. This Beacon is now going to be chucked into the mix in that realm. So I will certainly be using the Beacon more for those speed workouts. I prefer stiffer midsoles because they give a shorter, sharper, snappier response when I'm running. I find that I can get my cadence turning over a bit quicker with these things. Cadence is something personally outside of this review I've been working on a lot lately, and I'm finding better results when I'm wearing shoes with stiffer midsoles, like maybe the Rincon and maybe the Beacon. Now, there's a separate review there, comparison between the Rincon and the Beacon, I think, because those two shoes are kind of more along the same lines. But for me personally, this thing is going to be definitely reserved more so for the speed workouts and the maybe shorter easy runs. So overall, if you said to me, which one would you prefer, which one would you choose to have in your lineup? Well, at £99 for the Propel and £80 for the Beacon, of course, there is a £20 difference, which actually is quite a lot. I've said in my initial review and my overall final thoughts, this thing is great bang for your buck. £80 is absolutely brilliant. You're going to get such a good shoe, top end of the £80 mark. But of course, as I said, you're not buying a premium product, therefore you're not getting a premium. If you were buying a service, a premium service, in this case, you're not getting a premium ride, in my opinion. But for the money you pay for it, it's absolutely brilliant. On the other hand, you've got the £100 shoe, which I'm leaning towards much more. And if I'm completely honest with you, I'm going to be choosing the Propel over the Beacon. I can do my speed workouts in this thing if I wanted to. And for an all-round shoe, I'm always going to gravitate towards this. There has been a lot of hype about the Beacon. I get it, I can see it, but it just hasn't caught me. The bug isn't there with me. It's a great shoe, but it's not that magical shoe that I really hoped it would be. So those guys are my overall thoughts on these two shoes. I hope you've enjoyed the comparison, and as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have either of these two shoes? If you do, what are your thoughts on them? Can you compare them? Which do you prefer? And any other comments, please feel free to leave below. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, please make sure you do give it a like, subscribe to the channel, as I said, if you're new here, share it with your friends, and of course, I will see you next time for more running content. Until then.